Hi everyone, this is Lauren Steiner and I'm here bringing you a commentary video tonight. This is not going to be an interview show like I usually do on the Robust Opposition or a live stream of an event, but I am doing a commentary on some very important bills that we are facing going through the California legislature, that it is imperative that progressives stop before they get through the legislature. Many of you who have been watching my streams know that I did about 5 streams last Thursday of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's visit to Los Angeles. We had a team of activists work for at least 2 weeks, some even more. The last week we were having meetings every night to plan for her an amazing day from 8 in the morning till 2 p.m. in the afternoon that consisted of 3 events. One was an activist breakfast with about 50 activists and organizers, which she requested. She wanted a briefing of what activists and organizers were working on in Los Angeles because she herself comes out of that background. And she eschewed meetings with rich Hollywood donors and interviews with the mainstream media, and was called out by the Hollywood Reporter about this, but we think she did just what she should be doing, because as an organizer and an activist, she wants to find out what the issues are, and we presented to her the most pressing issues. Well, they're all pressing, but the ones that were coming up on the ballot in November, specifically public banking in Los Angeles and repeal of Costa-Hawkins. And 3 other issues we talked about at the lunch in front of over 500 people. And then we picked 5 more issues that we talked about at the breakfast. No, I'm sorry, there were 3 issues at lunch and 5 issues at the breakfast. So one of the things that we are facing in California are some egregious bills that are going through the legislature, and I just wanted to talk to you about them. And I want to give a shout out to 2 people whose work has helped me prepare for this video. One is Eric Brooks, who is I'll tell you his exact title. Eric is the campaign coordinator for Californians for Energy Choice, which is a statewide coalition working to protect and expand the local clean energy movement in California. And I had an opportunity to meet him a few years ago when we had to fight another terrible bill, Steve Bradford's bill. He's a corporate Democrat, an oily Democrat, which is another name for the moderate Democrats in California that take money from big oil, that would have killed community choice energy. And just as background to this video, for those of you who don't know what community choice energy is, it's a nonprofit in a community which buys directly from solar and wind clean energy producers and goes through the utility. They need to use the utility transmission lines and the utility billing system to bill the homeowner for the clean energy. Now, these programs, which started out in just Sonoma and Marin, are now expanding across the state. So one of the bills I'm going to talk about could really kill community choice energy unless we stop this bill. And community choice energy has proved to be cheaper because it cuts out the middleman and uses more green energy. So we know, well, I just want to preface this whole live stream with an article that I posted today on Facebook, which the title of the article was Carbon Concentrations Not Seen in 800,000 Years. Now, we all know that man-made climate change is happening way faster than even the scientists told us that it would. And Greg Johnson, who is an oceanographer at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, said, quote, "Even if humanity stopped greenhouse gases at their current concentration today, the temperature would continue to warm for the next couple of decades to maybe a century." So this is why I said today in a Facebook post, in my mind, intersectionality would mean every single group, whether it's Costa-Hawkins, public banking, single payer, putting everything aside and fighting like hell to save humanity, because that's really what we're being faced with. This is an existential threat to our very existence. I personally don't see this happening, which is why I told my children, I have 2 boys, 21 and 24, not to have children. I said, you're going to be bringing them into a very inhospitable world. And if you want to have children, adopt. There's so many needy children that need parents. But quite frankly, in 50 years, it's going to be really tough out there, fighting for food, fighting for water, etc. And it's going to be like Lord of the Flies. So personally, I think climate change and then nuclear war with Russia, which the establishment Dems and their propaganda organs in the mainstream media are doing a great job fomenting, would be the second most existential threat. And I don't see why they're trying to prevent Trump and Putin from trying to stop it. It's beyond me. But I will tell you that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez never once mentions Trump and Russia when she talks to her audience. She talks about things that are important for the 99%. So 2017 was the hottest year on record. 2018 is going to surpass that. And the U.S. was impacted by 16 weather and climate events that each caused over $1 billion in damage. So I will just run through the fires that are currently burning. The newest fire that started today is in Trabuco Canyon in Orange County. We have the Mendocino fire, which just came to be the second largest fire in California history. It has burned over 100,000 acres. In Shasta County, we have the Carr fire, the Ferguson fire in Yosemite, the Donald fire in Stanislaus National Forest, the Kastner fire in San Diego County, the Cranston fire in San Bernardino, the Holy fire in Orange County, the Horse Creek fire in Tulare, the Lyons fire in Mammoth Lake, the South fire in Calaveras County, the Tarina fire in Kern County, the Terra fire in Riverside County, the Turkey fire, the Valley fire, the Wagner fire, and the Whaleback fire. Now, if people are seeing this and they're going about their daily business, I can't help you. I really just can't help you. I mean, this is a sign that everything is falling apart and we need all hands on deck. Now, what can we do? It's beyond personal choices at this point. Yes, of course, personal choices are important, but really we need entire governments and the whole world to stop this climate change. So, meanwhile, because that is so overwhelming and probably paralyzing for people, what can we do in California? All right, I'm going to talk about, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to read Eric Brooks's article, because as I just found out today, he used to be a journalist, and this article is extremely well written. I cannot improve upon it, so I'm just going to read it to you. And it is called, he came up with a very long title. It is called Governor Jerry Brown, Warren Buffett, Monopoly Utilities colluding to bring us more coal electricity, fire tornadoes, and to put Donald Trump in control of California's power grid. It's so crazy that you could mistake it for a fictional Hollywood disaster movie script titled Firenado, but unfortunately it's all too real. Governor Jerry Brown, rapacious billionaire fossil energy tycoon Warren Buffett, and monopoly utilities like PG&E, SDG&E, that's San Diego Gas and Electric, and Edison, and SoCal Gas, Sempra, are colluding to, by the end of August, shove several bills through the California legislature which will deeply undermine our local clean energy movement, set California climate goals back by at least a decade, and bring us more devastating firestorms caused by utility transmission lines. First, some background. Governor Brown's family built much of its wealth on oil and natural gas interests, including Royal Dutch Shell. Governor Brown's sister Kathleen is on the board of Sempra Energy, whose subsidiary SoCal Gas has created and perpetuated California's Aliso Canyon natural gas disaster. As governor, Brown has expanded the oil fracking industry and caved to oil and auto interests by gutting all climate regulations on the auto industry, from California's 2015 Clean Energy Bill, SB 350. Brown has appointed former executives, attorneys, and investors for fossil fuel energy companies like PG&E and Chevron to his administration and to agencies like the California Public Utilities Commission, CPUC, and the California Energy Commission, CEC. Two CPUC commissioners under Brown, Michael Peavy and Mike Florio, were caught directly colluding with PG&E to diminish disaster liabilities caused by its neglected infrastructure. Enter Warren Buffett. Since the Schwarzenegger administration, this billionaire CEO of the fossil fuel energy giant Berkshire Hathaway has been seeking to make big profits by vastly expanding an already overbuilt and fire-hazardous western U.S. long-range energy transmission grid, through which Buffett plans to bring Berkshire Hathaway's cheap bulk coal and natural gas-based electricity into California. And I want to add to this article that Buffett also made a big bet on fracked oil when he bought Burlington Northern Railroad. So if you can't get the gas and the oil through the pipelines, you send it on these bomb trains, which we call these oil trains because they could explode. And an explosion in Lac-Mégantic, which is in Quebec, Canada, instantly vaporized a 5-mile area of town and killed like 46 people. Back to the article. But because California's electricity grid is currently a local, independent, nonprofit network, Buffett can't do so. And that's where Buffett's collusion with Brown begins. Together, Brown and Buffett have maneuvered to pass AB 813, an insidious bill that would force California's local nonprofit grid to become part of a vast corporate Western U.S. grid run by huge fossil energy corporations like Berkshire Hathaway. This is a plane. Hold on, let the plane... I'm in the Van Nuys Airport pathway here. This would not only privatize and fossilize California's clean energy-focused grid, but even worse, because it would make California part of a private regional grid spanning several states. Under federal law, AB 813 would put the rapidly pro-coal Donald Trump administration in direct control of California's electricity grid. Thankfully, last year when Brown and Buffett tried to sneak AB 813 through the state legislature as a surprise bill, in the last 2 weeks of the 2017 legislative session, they ran into two problems. The first was overwhelming opposition from California's clean energy advocates. Yay, us! The second was opposition from corporations like PG&E and Sempra, which weren't thrilled with the idea of competing with master profiteer Warren Buffett, and so asked Brown and the legislature to push the pause button on AB 813 so they could negotiate a deal. This is where a proposed grand bargain between Buffett, Brown, and the monopoly utilities enters the stage. As nearly every Californian knows, the dangerous long-range transmission wires of PG&E, San Diego Gas and Electric, and Southern California Edison have triggered massive and devastating wildfires all over the state, which I just talked about. The monopoly utilities, of course, want to get off the hook for the major financial liability of those wildfires, so they are pushing 3 bills in the state legislature, SB 1088, AB 33, and SB 901, which will shift fire liability from their investors and make their customers pay the cost instead. The implications are profound. If the big utilities and their stockholders were no longer required to pay the cost of the wildfires they create, they would not only have no incentive whatsoever to prevent such fires, they would have high incentive to build even more dangerous transmission lines, a big source of their profits. This would be the ultimate sweetheart deal for the big utilities. But needless to say, utility customers and fire victims statewide are outraged by these bills and are mobilizing to oppose them. Enter the grand bargain. To overcome opposition to his AB 813 grid privatization bill, Jerry Brown has put both it and the fire liabilities bills together on one negotiating table. Boy, that Brown is sneaky. Brown is seeking to gain the support of PG&E and the other monopoly utilities for AB 813 by offering them the fire liability get-out-of-jail-free cards of SB 1088, AB 33, and SB 901. Because of this cynical deal, California is now on a knife's edge of cheap imported fossil fuel electricity, completely undermining its local clean energy price competitiveness and of a dangerous expansion of unnecessary big transmission lines that will make fire dangers even worse. Remember, Warren Buffett wants to build more transmission lines too. Meanwhile, Senator Robert Hertzberg is offering his own noxious bill, SB 237, which will allow big corporations like Shell and Sempra, the latter which has donated to Hertzberg's campaigns, of course, to eliminate all caps on selling cheap fossil fuel energy to big commercial electricity customers in California. This would cause those customers to completely abandon our growing local community-based clean electricity programs known as community choice programs, which I explained earlier, and drive those local not-for-profit programs out of business. SB 237, just like the other bills noted above, would favor large, distant fossil fuel energy sources delivered over dangerous long-range transmission lines, which are preferred by companies like Shell and Sempra. This entire conflagration, get the fire analogy here, of corporate Sacramento deal-making is a recipe for a real-life disaster movie in California. The way to reverse the climate crisis and end our rampant wildfires is to switch to 100% community-based clean energy delivered through local microgrids, which need no dangerous long-range transmission lines at all. Jerry Brown, Warren Buffett, and the monopoly utilities are about to take us in exactly the opposite direction unless we stop them. Look up your California legislators at findyourrep.legislature.ca.gov, and I will put this link as well as the article in the comments, and demand that they vote no on AB 813, SB 1088, AB 33, SB 901, and SB 237. Tell them you don't want your energy future handed over to the fossil fuel energy corporations, which are literally seeking to burn down California. So thank you, Eric Brooks, for that excellent article, which I just got published in the LA Progressive. I will share that link as well. Hopefully City Watch will publish this as well. And if any of you watching have connections to any of your local either print or online publications, please see if you can republish this article. Just give credit to the LA Progressive because they were the ones who published it first. So, moving along, we talked a lot about corporations and corporations' influence on our legislators. That leads me to this other horrible bill called AB 84. And for this, I want to thank Ryan Skolnick, known as Ryan Asher on Facebook, who is a Assembly District delegate to the California Democratic Party, who basically uncovered this bill, which they tried to sneak in as what they call a gut and amend bill, which means they took a previous bill that didn't go anywhere. In this case, there was a bill to change the California primary date, move it earlier, the Democratic primary date. And they got it passed through another bill, so they withdrew this bill at the end of the last legislative season. But because the legislative season is really for 2 years, it was still alive and available for them to gut and amend. And by gutting and amending it, they didn't have to have it go through any committees. See how sneaky they are? And this is something by a guy by the name of Kevin Mullen. It's his bill, but we are confident that he was put up to it by Anthony Rendon, boo, who killed our single-payer bill by shelving it. And he is the Assembly Speaker. And Tony Atkins, who is the President pro tem of the California Senate. Now, what this bill would do is it would allow Republican and Democratic leaders in the state assembly, which include Rendon and Atkins, and I'm sorry I don't know the names of the Republican leaders, so basically the majority leader and the minority leader in each house, so there would be 4 committees, to set up these new, what they call legislative caucuses. And these are like political party committees which have more generous campaign contributions than individual donations to a candidate. An individual can maxes out at $4,400, but a party committee can give up to $36,500 to a candidate. And so therefore corporate donors can give $73,000 when you add those two numbers together, more to each party for their candidate that they're trying to push through. Now, they also can give money, that would be the maximum disclosed amount, but they can give an unlimited undisclosed amount to an independent expenditure committee, which could pay for negative ads against an endorsed candidate, for example, and also to administrative costs. So this is an end run, as Ryan points out, around the fact that progressives have infiltrated the California Democratic Party after the Bernie Sanders election. Some of you may remember that when we had these assembly district delegate elections, which make up the elected delegates are 1/3 of the party delegates, right? The California party delegates. And then there are county committee delegates, and those county committee people are also elected. So altogether, you can say that there's about 2/3 of the delegates are elected, and then maybe 1/3 are elected officials, sort of like super delegates. But we were able to, well, I say we, I dem-exited last year, but progressive Democrats, and I was covering a lot of these events, were able to win like 600 seats in the party, and we have been pushing, they have been pushing, I should say, I should include myself because I'm doing the pushing just as much, progressive legislation. And now, why is progressive legislation, even if we get it into the platform, like a ban on fracking or single-payer health care, why are these things not getting passed? Because of campaign finance, okay? If an elected official whose primary job, and I learned this in college over 40 years ago, that an elected official's job is to get reelected. You might think it is to pass good legislation, but oh no, it is to get reelected. And they need money to get reelected, and this is a way to get money. But see, what Anthony Rendon is doing is he's trying to bypass the progressive wing of the party, which is making the party more progressive, by trying to sneak these things through. And we're not going to let him, okay? Because this is now going before the Elections Committee, and the Elections Committee is headed by Henry Stern, who is a state senator in the area that is covered by Aliso Canyon, and he did one good bill last year. He tried to get a bill, I think it was called SB 37, passed, that said that they could not reopen Aliso Canyon gas storage facility until they found out the root cause of the leak. And that bill went down to defeat, of course, because Jerry Brown was against it, and his sister sits on the board of Sempra Energy, which is the owner of the SoCal Gas, which operates the facility. But anyway, so it's going before the Senate Elections Committee, and that's the place that we want to kill it. Now, I will tell you, and I will put a link to Ryan's longer 22-minute video about this bill into the comments, but I will tell you that Senator Henry Stern is listening. I mean, I called both his Sacramento office and his Calabasas office today and spoke to 2 female aides, one of whom in Calabasas was the district representative. And I basically said, look, you know, we are trying to get our legislators to represent the will of the people. And if we want to ban fracking, if we want single payer, if we want to shut down Aliso Canyon, and your boss did a great job fighting for that bill, even though I think he probably could have fought harder. I wasn't going to tell her that. Your boss did a great job fighting for that bill, and here these things come along where these unelected people, these corporations, you know, like, for instance, oil companies, private prison corporations, health insurance companies, big pharma, where they can, you know, give this huge amount of money, basically overriding the will of the people. And this is not the direction that California Democratic Party is supposed to go. And Michelle Sutter, who is the lead organizer for Money Out, Voters In, basically used her 2 minutes of time with AOC at the breakfast the other day to tell her about AB 84, because this basically violates an important ballot initiative, Prop 59, that she worked very hard with a lot of other clean money advocates to get passed in the initiative, which is that California needs to do everything it can to end the influence of big money in politics. So this bill is in direct contravenance to our Prop 59. So basically what I'm asking people to do is, starting tomorrow, call these legislators, call your legislator regarding these energy and wildfire bills that I spoke to you about, and call the Senate Elections Committee, whose names I will put in the comments, about AB 84. And then after that, in case it passes the Senate Elections Committee, it's going to go on to the State Assembly, which is a lot less progressive, and it's going to be a lot harder to kill, even though it does need a 2/3 vote. But remember, our Democrats have a 2/3 majority in the legislature, and even with that majority, we haven't been able to get our progressive stuff passed because of the influence of corporate money and other special interest money, which also includes unions, by the way. I will tell you that the Private Prison Guards Union are just as much interested in the expansion of private prisons and private detention centers as are the private prison corporations. So this is what I am asking you to do. And if you have any questions, put your questions in the comments and I will try to answer them, or have Eric or Ryan answer them if I don't know the answers. But please share this video in groups. I am in Facebook jail again. I did one thing. This is getting outrageous, folks. I did a compilation video of the activist breakfast briefing with AOC. I edited it, put it on my YouTube channel, and I shared it in one group, Sandinistas. And the next thing I know, I get a message from Facebook saying I'm banned from posting until Wednesday night. So conveniently after the election, okay? So somebody is in there on Facebook, and, you know, because we have a lot of progressives that are running, Abdul El Sayed, Cori Bush, Sarah Smith, others, and their election is Tuesday night. They saw AOC, they saw a candidate. I originally put this on Our Revolution Los Angeles' Facebook page, and I was going to boost the ad. I was going to spend $20 to boost the ad of this video, and at first it was approved at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then at 7 p.m. I'm like, I get this message, oh, you reviewed your video, and it doesn't meet our political guidelines. You have to fill out this huge form. And I started to fill out the form, but then I realized I was giving them my physical address. I was giving them the front and back side of my driver's license, and I'm like, no more personal information am I giving to Facebook. So I'm not going to be able to run any political ads on Facebook, but hopefully they won't be able to catch everything that I do, and I'll be able to get more of this programming out to you folks. So stay tuned to my show. I'm going to be resuming after the legislative season. I've got a lot of authors lined up who have written some interesting books and interesting, really long articles that have accepted my Facebook friend request and are anxious to come on my show, because some people will read, some people will watch, other people will listen. Everybody learns and absorbs information in a different way. I enjoy doing a little bit of all of those things, but stay tuned to my show. If you are not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, it's Lauren from LA. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Lauren_Steiner. But in the meantime, keep fighting these bills.